sirree. We are coming at you live, as always. It just wouldn't be the same. I got to get that applause and everything going because it is just not the same without that confetti coming down and all the people going crazy and just jumping up and down and saying, yeah, it's time for another Ohio political news. Ha! What? You know, the week is just not the same without it. And so that's the kind of thing. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Good.
Good to see you and Jonathan.
Great to see you guys. I do imagine that. I think that most of all of the state of Ohio and some other states jump up and down and squeal with delight every time our podcast starts.
I'm sure they do. All right, I got a couple questions. Yeah, they just go nuts. Okay, I got a couple questions for you guys. And first of all, the one big beautiful bill that Trump did, he signed that on July 4th, 2025. Really good day to do it. All right, but I want to cut to this for a minute. Elon Musk is talking about starting a third party.
To start a political party, and we'll see where they go with it. My humble advice to Elon, who I admire very much, actually, is that you may be dividing the forces of people who want to save Western civilization to the benefit of the people who don't.
Okay, so Musk. It wants to start a third party. It's not called X. It should be. It should be called X, but he's calling it the American Party. And I just throw that out to you guys here. Thoughts on that? Good, bad, ugly, horrible, sensational? What do you think?
Well, I think we do need a second party because right now it seems to me both parties have no longer seem to be what they used to be 10, 20, certainly, 50 years ago. Now, Democrat Party, they've got the communists on the far right that seem to be controlling everything, and other Democrats don't want to join the Republican Party. Then you got a Republican Party, just here, locally, and at the state level. I think they've seemed to, left me because I don't know if they're really looking out for the average ordinary citizen. That's just my opinion.
Gotcha. What do you think, Jonathan? It's a good idea for Musk to form another party, a third party.
It's absolutely an atrocious idea. At the moment, it would actually represent a second party because we have a uniparty between what used to be the Republican Party and what used to be the Democrat Party. But here's the deal. The thing is, this is an old adage from a friend of mine. The Republican Party is a Sherman tank. The Democrat Party is a Panzer tank. The Libertarian Party, which has been around for about 30 years, is a bicycle. The purpose of that analogy is to point out that it takes at least a decade, at an absolute minimum, no matter how many billions of dollars you throw into it, to create a political party that means anything or might possibly do anything is at least a decade. In 30 years, the Libertarian Party has pumped untold billions of dollars into it, and they don't really have any elected politicians to show for it. So all Elon Musk stands to do is divide people and divide up the parties. There's a better answer in precinct strategy.
Okay, I think it's a horrible idea as well because it never works. You got the libertarians, and like you said, they're a bicycle compared to the a race car and stuff. They're not going anywhere. They never have gone anywhere. Now, I don't know what Musk expects to do. He's only been in politics 6 months, but already he thinks he knows more than anybody, but he's going to find out it ain't working. Now, this lady here, I'll bring this up for a minute, Lisa Murkowski, she's a senator out of Alaska, and she is a Republican, but what she is doing is she is saying, get a load of this, all right? What she's saying is that if the Democrats pick up 3 Senate seats in the 2026 primary, okay, or 2026 general election, I mean. If the Democrats pick up 3 seats, she's going to become a Democrat because she wants to be on the side that has the majority. And she's not sure that she likes being a GOP anymore.
Well, that tells us that she's probably already a Democrat. It just means that, like all these other RINOs, that they're pretending to be Republican. And I say the same thing to her that I say to all these quote unquote fake Republicans that come out and finally admit that they're actually Democrats. Good riddance. We most of us who pay any attention have known that for a long time. That's what made the Uniparty. So, to be clear about my answer in this, it doesn't make any sense to continue to pretend like the Democrats who are within the Republican Party are somehow actually Republican because 5 minutes ago they put a pretend R next to their name. I'm not going to pretend any more than I'm going to pretend that a man in a dress with heels and lipstick is a woman. I'm not going to pretend that those people are Republican. I want to get rid of them, replace them with actual Republicans, and then use the apparatus of the Republican Party to make America great again. That's a much better answer than starting from scratch and trying to create something new. And it eliminates the need for a distraction of whatever that woman's name is. I've forgotten already.
Murkowski. Okay,
Yeah,
so she's out in
Murkowski.
Alaska, and what she wants to do, this is so ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, I would primary her. There's got to be somebody that should go up against in Alaska and beat her, for crying out. Get some penguins, anything. Get her out of there. And she's got the gall to say, well, if the Democrats pick up 3 seats, I'm going to become a Democrat. So I can be on the majority side. That is a ludicrous, ridiculous statement.
Well, what about Susan Collins? Jonathan, wouldn't you say the same thing about Susan Collins? And there's so many of them. How do you...
Yeah, Collins is.
How do you get rid of them?
There is actually there's a method and a formula. So going back to what Joe just said, Joe said if these people are outing themselves as actually being Democrats, which they are, and we should primary them. A lot of people say that. But what does it actually mean to primary somebody? In order to primary, you need to find a good candidate and run them, and they need to successfully get elected. The key ingredient, about 90% of the battle in accomplishing that, is endorsements. Who controls the endorsements? The Republican Party. Who controls the Republican Party? Right now, it's a toss-up. There's a kind of a civil war going on within the Republican Party between actual Republicans, the people that want a republic again, and the Democrats who've crossed over and invaded. They've taken over decades ago. If we can win that war, and it really doesn't take big numbers, if we can get just a solid majority, if we can take over the Republican Party and give it back to the will of we the people, then we will control endorsements, then we can primary people. Short of that, I hear people all over social media, people say it all the time, that's some terrible person. They don't care. They can be Gavin Newsom awful. They can be Adam Kinzinger awful. It doesn't matter. If there aren't people there organized and united locally to replace them, which means running the party, it means creating the endorsements and getting out slate cards. That's 90% of the battle because most people don't pay attention to politics. If you can take over that apparatus, you can primary all those people overnight. We would reclaim the Republican Party and have a representative government again. That's what precinct strategy is all about. Everybody should go, if you're listening to this, go to ohioprecinctstrategy.org. The website is ohioprecinctstrategy.org. It spells it all out. The whole system is designed for exactly what I'm talking about. This is entry-level beginning civics and American government, the stuff we weren't taught in school, because the powers that be don't want us to understand this stuff. They don't want us to understand how government actually works. And if Trump were smart, if he were smarter, he would have done it starting about 5 years ago. He actually endorsed precinct strategy. He recognized a friend of mine, Dan Schultz, who created precinct strategy, the website, the book. He wrote the book on it. He's been on Bannon's War Room a bunch of times. He talks about precinct strategy. He and I have been training the nation on precinct strategy for 2 years. Trump recognized it about 3 years ago, but hasn't run with it. And candidly, if Musk were smarter, he would do the same thing. Anybody who really wants to reclaim America and make America great again, the tools are right there. They're all spelled out. You don't need a new party. You don't need billions. You don't need to reinvent government. It's all right there. It's in the design of our political system.
Well,
you just need to find the people to fill those seats and implement.
Design. Yeah, it's in the design, but you still got to make it happen. You still got to make it happen. I think that's the problem. And it ain't.
Well, Jonathan, can I ask a question there, Jonathan? We have been supporting school board candidates. We've been supporting state representatives. And when they first start out, they're absolutely, outstanding, but they seem to get enmeshed in the whole system. And then, after a year, you don't even recognize the person that you were supporting because they get in, especially going down to the state house, state capitol. I can name some names where I don't even recognize the person anymore. It's just the system, it tears them up.
It's absolutely true, but I firmly believe that that's changing. We have probably the biggest populist movement in American history. And actually, when you consider what's happening globally, and the pushback you're starting to see in Ireland and the Netherlands, and even within China and places like it all over the world, right now is an amazing time to be alive. The populist movement is extraordinary. Where, Brian, in the past, we've seen those elected representatives and those school board members, we have unfortunately thrown one at a time, onesie-twosies, into the lion's den. And we've expected the world of them. We have thrown people into our state legislature, which is tremendously crooked and corrupt, and into school boards that are historically super far left, ultra progressive, woke Marxist, and thought maybe somehow that single person was going to single-handedly change things, and they can't. They get chewed up by the sawmill that is that leftist Marxist place. But right now, we're putting real numbers in. And right now, I'm going to use school boards as an example. In the past, we had in Ohio, there's something called the Ohio School Boards Association, which shifted left years ago, and then it went further left, and then it went progressive, and then it went ultra left. And it's just so woke, it's an outrage. But now there's an alternative to it. And I'm just giving one example of the willpower and might of we the people when we apply ourselves. There are several actual alternatives to Ohio School Boards Association. One is Ohio School Boards Constitutional Coalition. That's run by Jeremiah Sawyer, a friend of mine. Awesome group of people that do the same type of training without any of the woke. We're starting to see the same things happening with like the Freedom Caucus within the Republican Party and people with actual spine and in larger numbers than that onesie-twosie, that single individual that's just gotten chewed up and spit out in the past. It gives me hope that in places like Columbus and local school boards, and maybe even someday our state school board, we might have a chance at fighting back and reclaiming our representatives and getting good things back in those ecosystems.
Right. Well, let me just say something. When you get on a school board, if you're the only conservative and you've got you've got a liberal here and a liberal here and whatever, and then you've got a liberal administration that's breathing down your neck and everything, you pretty much start to conform. That's the problem. And then when you go to the state house, it's the same thing. You're saying, why do they become like that? Well, because you need to get reelected every 2 years. You need the help of the speaker. You're going to need people donating to you and people saying, well, I want this donor to give you money so that you can keep your spot and everything like that. Or if you become too radicalized, they might throw somebody in there to primary you. This is what I refer to as the good old boys club. All right, you conform, or they try to massage you out of the way. To some extent, that's part of the problem with some of this. But I want to also do this here real quick. Kent, you're out there. Let's just talk here for a second about Ohio political news. Also, if you are in the chat, please chat. We'd love to see what you have to say, and we'll make you part of the show. But Go ahead.
Well, I just definitely check out our social media platforms. Are on everything really that is viable to find us. Definitely Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, X, wherever you're looking. We'll be out there. We're going to be trying to do a lot of remote live streaming too, as everything builds up for the election for next year, even for this year coming up. Everything that we're doing, make sure to find us and share this, because that's the best way. Sharing is caring, and I definitely want to recommend sharing wherever you're watching. I know we're getting a nice audience on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble and X. Thank you for everybody watching tonight. Make sure to share this to let people know that we're out there. We're going to also be doing a bunch of... we do have the shop. I know I saw Jonathan with his mug. We'll be doing that. We'll have some t-shirts. I know Brian's going to be mentioning that with property taxes later in the show. Make sure to stay tuned with Ohio Political News.
So if they want a t-shirt, where do they go? To the website? Go right
yeah,
to the
just
website,
go to the
right?
website and then /shop. And it's right up at the top of the website, and that's probably the best way to find us. But we will also be promoting it and on all the different platforms, so you can find us directly. And then also make sure if you have something going on, let us know so we can get out there. I know a couple weeks ago we had a gentleman over in Madison just collecting signatures and all that. And if you're out there, let us know so we can share that and let people know where you're at, so we can get as many people out to wherever you're at and promote you to collect.
Well,
that's the it's a grounds game. So
and subscribe and do all that kind of stuff, and buy the t-shirts and help support us and everything. We would really appreciate that. And here's a chat. Let me just see what it says here. I gotta take my glasses off to read it, and I gotta get real clear. I'll put my glasses back on. So do one of these things here. School boards listen to their gatekeepers. They do not understand the responsibility is to confirm the information that they are being given. Well, school boards, for my respect, the way I look at it is the schools want people on the school board who are going to do their bidding. Okay, so if they've got, let's say, four or five, and one of them is a conservative, that's okay, because the others will drown them out. Okay, but they're not there to listen to a bunch of conservatives. They're there to get their woke agenda passed and stuff like that. So that's
100% agree.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about it too. Now here is us on X, and if we scroll down, look at we're live on X. Jonathan is still talking on X. There's a little bit of a delay, but I want to go down here. Now, who is this? Now you guys know who this is, Kamala Harris. Okay, she, believe it or not, they're thinking about her being the presidential candidate for 2028. What do you think of them apples here?
I think she should. Yeah, absolutely.
I would not hesitate a second on that. I think it would be wonderful. Here's what we had Gabe on here. He's only a senior in college. This kid is a superstar as far as I'm concerned. But this is what he had to say. Listen to this.
I always tell this to people, because I think it is the most important rule. I see so many campaigns, especially the Kamala Harris campaign last year. They tried very hard to engage young people with these fake strategies, with these consultant-driven media campaigns. The number one rule I tell people is you cannot astroturf youth support. Youth support is either there or it's not. And you can harness the support that is there. But it's very, very hard to inorganically create support for the conservative cause.
Yeah. So what he's saying there is, when you get to the younger groups, the younger kids coming up, you can't have this phony conservative appeal or liberal appeal. They thought that all of the college kids were just going to automatically vote for Kamala for some bizarre reason. and they were in for a rude awakening because a lot of these guys voted for Trump. A lot of the college-age kids got out there and voted for Trump, but they saw authenticity. That's what Gabe was talking about. He was on the show the other week. That's what he was talking about, authenticity. They see that in Trump, okay? This MAGA movement, the guy takes a bullet to the head. Trump is just a fighter, and this is what has motivated them. Let me say this. Let's see if you guys agree. Ohio has not become a red state because of the GOP. They've become a red state because of Trump, because of the MAGA movement. And
I would agree with that, Joe, and because the young people see, what is happening, the difficulties they have in life. I just heard a statistic that now that the younger generation, it's not until they're 38 years old before they can afford a house. So that is completely different from prior generations. And they just see that they graduate from college and they may not be able to get the high-paying job that they were expecting.
Well, what Gabe was saying also was that they're graduating from college and they've got this massive mound of debt, okay? Mm-hmm. And think about how scary that is, because going to college nowadays is bankrupt you. It'll bankrupt you unless you get a nice paying job. Then he was complaining about the legal immigrants coming into this country because they would get those H-1 visas and they were hiring.
They'd work for less.
They would work for a lot less. They're from India and some of these other foreign countries, and they would hire them. And even Vivek Ramaswamy was talking about that, and they kind of got rid of him pretty fast out of the White House because that's how he built his business. All right, that's one of the dark marks against Vivek. Okay, but that's how he built his empire with his software business and things like that. But that's killing the young generation that needs a high-paying job, and then you got to pay off that ridiculous college bill. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah, they can't afford to move out of their parents' home.
Yeah, they're there for life. They ain't moving anywhere. By the way, we are going to talk about taxes coming up here maybe in about 15, 20 minutes or so. We're going to switch into the whole tax brigade here, and we got to get that passed so that we don't have property taxes in Ohio. Now, this is off Ohio Political News. This is our X account, and I think this is pretty funny here because you're looking at these liberals. They're only 3.5 years into it. They're only 6 months into it. They got 3.5 years to go, and they're going nuts. They don't know what to do about it. And then here's the last question. Here's the last question. What's that? Go ahead. You got a thought on that?
I was just going to interject that I mean, there's a pattern. You know what the left are doing, and I swear it has to be from some sort of central control. Every day, the left all wake up with instructions on some weird thing to go all over social media and harp on, and they have the same message. It's canned. And whatever it is, the alligator Alcatraz or whatever the issue of the day is, they all go out with the same message and just hammer away. It's exhausting. But talk about inorganic. None of these people seem to be able to think for themselves. You have this parade of leftists who all have the same little canned thing that they put all over social media daily about whatever the topic of the day is. It's mystifying.
Yeah, no, I got you. All right, let's one last question. We're going to get into Trump's big beautiful bill here real quick. But Sherrod Brown, okay, we've got this posted on X, and Sherrod Brown is in a dilemma because he doesn't know if he should run for governor or if he should run for the Senate in Ohio. All right, so he's in a little bit of a bind. So, not that I feel bad for the guy, because I couldn't care less. Thoughts on that? If Brian, if you were Sherrod Brown, would you run for governor and go up against Ramaswamy, or would you go up against John Husted and the MAGA movement?
Personally, I'd probably go up against Husted. With Ramaswamy already having the endorsement, that's probably, as I understand it, that will be very difficult to break. I'm still not. I know I've said before that we need some new blood down there in the state capitol. Is Ramaswamy it? I don't know. We have put out feelers. We would like to. Our committee would like to meet with Ramaswamy or, his handlers and ask him about the property taxes, because he's not for us in our movement. So we need to find out from him why.
Yeah, good point on that one. I'll throw it real quick, Jonathan. Yes, would you run for governor or would you run for a U.S. Senate if you were Sherrod Brown?
Sherrod Brown for prison. If I were Sherrod Brown, personally, if I were Sherrod Brown, I'd go up against Husted. Husted has way less of a name than Vivek Ramaswamy, but just in case anybody is listening from Sherrod Brown's campaign, his office, you should definitely go up against Vivek Ramaswamy for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
That's our
got you there.
opinion.
All right, let's talk about the one big beautiful bill. Let's see what we got here. So there's going to be massive tax cuts with this big beautiful bill that was finally signed. About $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. What do you think of them apples? So there will not be any federal income tax on tips, overtime pay, and Social Security income up to a certain level, all tax-free. Now that's really good. Also, there's going to be cuts to Medicaid and food, like SNAP, the SNAP. So cuts to Medicaid about 20%. That's pretty big. They're going to make, but there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. You could probably cut about 75% and be okay. There's going to be work requirements up to the age of 64 if you're in good health. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, the SNAP. There's going to be a tightening on the SNAP or the food stamps. So, here's another. Let me just see what this says real quick. We'll come right back to it. It's Ohio Political News. Ohio Political Action. Sherrod Brown is holding the entire Ohio Democrat hostage as they wait for him to do what he's going to do. Yeah, and the problem there is it's a real dilemma for him because Ramaswamy's got $27 million already. Husted is going to have a boatload of money because they got to maintain that Senate seat. It is so important. So he's in a lost cause. And the MAGA movement, where this is becoming a MAGA red state, so it's going to be a huge uphill climb for him. And he ain't young. I mean, that guy should have retired quite a while ago.
Do these politicians, I'll ask you and Jonathan, do they ever think about their legacy? I would think if Sherrod Brown, tries running again, he gets defeated, that'd be the second big loss for him. Does that ever enter their equation of should I run or not?
I doubt it. I mean, look at what's happening in D.C. You've got people that are basically a strolling bag of bones. They're being pushed around in wheelchairs so they can eke out another 4 years and make another $1 billion or whatever in graft, fraud, and corruption. It's ridiculous and egregious. I mean, we all know, and we're all now finally, as a nation, talking about addressing what I keep posting is mysteriously wealthy. Just call them all mysteriously wealthy. When you get to Washington, D.C. or into politics or whatever, and you've got $10,000 to your name and leave, however, the longer you can stay in. It's like, I actually just watched that movie a couple of weeks ago, the Last Rodeo. It's like the longer you can stay on the bull, the more money you make. And these politicians, they just hold on for dear life, and they don't care. They don't care what we say, how bad the press is, how bad they look, how obvious it is that they're corrupt. They don't care. And in Sherrod Brown's case, I mean, he has a chapter dedicated to him, for heaven's sakes, in Peter Schweitzer's book, Profiles in Corruption. It's a whole chapter dedicated to the corruption of Sherrod Brown and his political career. They don't care. They want to make another $100 million or whatever. And I guess at a certain point, you just sell your soul when you get into politics. And none of these people are willing to recognize the correlation between their nasty, vicious spoils and their ridiculous and egregious wealth and the suffering of humanity. There's the number of people in Ohio that are going homeless, that are losing their livelihoods, they can't pay their bills, they can't put food on the table, is directly connected to those people that become mysteriously wealthy. It's not a mystery that those two are connected. It shouldn't be, but those people don't care, and that is their legacy. All those people that eke their way in and just schmooze the right people in order to get into office, they leave like 49 years later worth $500 million for no particular reason. It's awful. It's what creates the social ills that we have, the homelessness, the hunger, all of it.
Yeah.
Well, you just look what happened with Biden, in the years that he was president. It was very obvious that he was not in a strong mental state, but everybody just kept propping him up and keeping him in the basement or whatever they could to lie to the American people.
Yeah, that 2020 election, he won that by staying in his basement. And he got 81 million votes, and now they're analyzing all that because the fraud in that was off the charts, the fraud.
Yep.
But he stayed in his basement. He never came out.
Hey,
and
Joe, you got to be
votes.
careful there, Joe. If you say that there was election in fraud, you're going to have the FBI knocking on your door. Just wanted to give you a little heads up.
Yeah.
But there are now about 77 million or more doors that the FBI needs to be knocking on. Because
everybody's saying it now. Everybody's
saying it now.
Yeah. Well, let's finish up a little bit on this one big, beautiful bill here. A couple other things. Green energy is going to be rolled back. Trump has repealed or phased out the clean energy tax credits. Now, we've done some shows on that carbon capture. Remember how they wanted to capture the carbon coming out of those smokestacks and then pumping it into the ground?
Right.
That ain't going to happen anymore because the only reason these companies, these corporations were willing to do that was because they were being subsidized by the Biden administration in this Green Act, okay? That's all been cut. So it's going to cost them too much money. They ain't going to do it. These windmills, they're going to go by the wayside. All those solar panels that you see out next to the cows and stuff out in some of that green pastures and stuff. I don't think any of that's really going to flourish under Trump because he's just not giving them any credits anymore for that.
Well, thank goodness. I was worried they were going to, have the windmills out in Lake Erie. I thought for sure
that would have been disastrous. Yeah, that would have been horrible. Absolutely horrible. One last thing here: defense and immigration enforcement. $150 billion has been allocated for defense, and that includes that Gold Dome. You guys heard about that? The Gold Dome. That's going to just stop missiles from coming into this country, I guess. And then $175 billion for border and enforcement. So $175 billion to finish the wall on the southern border. And also they want to hire at least another 10,000 ICE agents, okay, because the deportations are really going to be upped. They're going to be like deportations on steroids compared to what we have right now. And then he's building, money also for places like Alligator, Alcatraz, and things like that. So that's just a few of the highlights of the one big beautiful bill. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was. I still wish they would have cut some more, but I would go along with Trump. If he's for it, and I said I would be for it also. I am also equally concerned about the whole judicial system, though. But I don't know how that can be tied into the whole budget. But we've also got to do something about these federal judges that are really just controlling what the executive branch is doing. Without, I think they're outside of their lane, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm just glad it got the bill got through. I know that there's probably a lot of it's going to raise the debt trillions of dollars. We know that, and that's why Musk wasn't happy with it, and some of the others were not have senators and stuff like that. But Trump needs this. He's got to finish that wall. He's got to build that golden dome. He's got to get another 10,000 ICE agents. I mean, he's just got to clean up a big mess. Left
Joe,
by
I had read that Murkowski in Alaska. She was only going to vote if she got all of her wishes, for a variety of things for her state. So, holding the country hostage.
Yeah,
but I guess that's just
a bunch of them were.
Well, she had said that. She had said that, but she changed her mind. But now she's saying she ain't going to change her mind anymore. She might become a Democrat.
Well, she might admit to being a Democrat. So I have a recommendation for our audience. My recommendation for the audience is this bill is large and complex. There are a lot of moving parts to it and a lot of pieces. And there were a lot of negotiations and sort of who was it? I think it was the NRA made some comment about silencers, and they were calling it the hokey pokey. Put the silencer in, you take the silencer out, you put it back in, and you shake it all about. There were things that it got sort of hard to follow. My recommendation is find Tom Zawistowski on social media. You'll find a website. It's We the People. Brian, what's the website in total? But find Tom Z. He does a great job of covering the high points. You can get video. You can get a little sheet that sort of illustrates for you what came out of the big, beautiful bill in highlights. So you can have it however you want it. You can get Tom Z going into the detail, as he's so good at doing. You can get a couple of highlight reels if you're pressed for time, or even just a little quick synopsis sheet. Tom Zawistowski goes by Tom Z. Find him on social media and check that out.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's wethepeopleconvention.org. O-R-G.
Thank you for that. Yep, wethepeopleconvention.org.
Okay, let's just see here. Angela is saying, I want the candidate who runs on a platform of embracing an Ohio Doge. That would be wonderful.
I would agree with that completely.
I mean, we're all... Well, we have Jennifer Gross on here once a month, and that's a big thing for her, too. The problem is, though, if the insiders are going to be the Doging of the state, that's where you get into problems, because you have to have an outside group, basically, that has power and that is honest and will Doge Ohio. There's a lot to Doge in Ohio.
Yeah.
If we look at some of these DeWine, let's switch over to the property tax right now. And
well, there was a Marcy Kaptur comment that was a pretty good one.
Okay, what was
it? Bring that back up again? Marcy Kaptur, case in point, Sleepy Marcy. Even Fox called her out. Yeah. So we've got to get rid of Marcy Kaptur. I was so hopeful with J.R. Majewski. I really wanted J.R. Wow. So that's quite a post.
Yeah, that is a big post. I don't know if they can somehow maybe chop it up a little bit or something. But, yeah, she fell asleep. Right. She fell asleep during the hearings. But she's been in there longer than anyone, Marcy. And I'll tell you something right now. She's out. She's gone, okay? They are making her a high priority. She won 2 years ago by less than 1%. Derek Marin lost to her by less than 1%.
Right. Yeah, Marin, that's right.
Yeah, Derek Marin. So, but now Marin, I don't know. Now there's a big controversy here. Are you going to give Derek Marin? See, you don't get second chances in politics at the high level, okay? Because people get nervous. Some people were saying he should have pulled that out. Well, I think Josh Williams is now throwing his name into the hat, and the party might be more willing to get behind him. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how this plays out. But whether it's Josh Williams, Derek Marin, or even somebody else, I guess, going after Marcy Kaptur, she's gone. Okay. They are also, and I'm not even that up to date on this, but they do have to redraw some of the congressional district lines, I believe, for 2026. So they might just throw a few more Republicans in her district. We could easily pick up 2 congressional seats, the Republicans, in 2026. Marcy Kaptur and Amelia Sykes. Amelia Sykes was another one. I think she won by maybe 5%, but there was no money given to the Republican, and he came pretty darn close to beating her. So he's going to be fully funded this go round. And that's another district that might get tweaked a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Look, watch this here. I got this off your website, Brian.
I'm Lou. I bought my house in Portage County on 1.5 acres 42 years ago.
I just got to emphasize a few things. He bought his house in Portage County 42 years ago. 42 years.
I paid off my house, no credit cards. Okay, but then life happens. My wife got sick with 2 stages of cancer, so I had to quit my job to take care of her. Economy tanked the last few years, then property taxes shot up over 33%. Now, here comes more ballot issues and school levies. I'm sick of people.
You know what? They did a really good job on this video. And this looks just like the woke liberal educational teacher you run into. Exactly the same right here. And if you don't vote for that levy, you're selfish. You're just one of them. You're no good.
Telling me how selfish I am that I can't afford another levy or bond, right? Like I have money for that. I've been told to just sell my home, move my sick wife. Let me say that again, move my sick wife. It is always shut up.
And this guy, it's just kind of funny because it reminds me of the auditors, the county auditors. This guy, literally in a monkey suit, it reminds me of the county auditors. But listen, you've been saying that too, and this is some of the politicians have been coming out and saying, "Hey, you're up in age. You've been living in that house 42 years. Sell it. Sell your house. Make a profit. Take the money. Go live in some crappy ass apartment." And you'll have the money to pay for it, and shut your mouths and don't listen. Just shut your mouths. We don't want to hear anything.
If you question the system or speak out, you get called. What's really pisses me off is how the government expects us to pay taxes, yet there is not one governmental organization that can have a balanced budget and not dump dollars down the drain.
Real quick on that, too. That is so true, isn't it? Isn't that true? Yeah. There's not one government agency there's no accountability. They just spend. They can't balance a budget. All they know is they need to collect more money because they're always falling short of their budget. They need more money.
Yeah,
prices
Joe, you're
are
absolutely
higher
right.
than a cat's.
There's no checks and balances in our system at all. There's no one is looking out for the average taxpayer.
Nobody.
And
that's
another
of life
thing that
has
DeWine
really
eliminated.
A nosedive. We need to have no property tax after retirement. I'm serious. I don't know what we're going to do. Let me rephrase that. What in the hell are all of us going to do?
Yeah. All right, no property tax after you retire, but we don't want any property taxes at all, period. So I got that off your website. I mean, that is just one example of how it's just destroying lives, these never-ending property taxes.
I'm looking at the post. Trump now supports ending property taxes. It's a green light for states. I thought that was, I didn't know if that was real or if it was fake news, but I've heard it more and more. I haven't heard it directly from Trump, so I hope that's true because he's now recognizing what many of the other states, not just the state of Ohio, but many of the other states are saying that it's just not sustainable with the property taxes. And something else has to be done. But in the state of Ohio, it's not and it's probably true in other states too, it's not a revenue generation problem, it's a spending problem. They can't curb the spending, and with the thousands of taxing authorities in the state of Ohio, as I say, they're sucking the lifeblood out of the community. They can't continue to take money away from the people. The people need that money to live and to reinvest it back in the community by buying things in the community, keep the economy going. But we've lost sight of that, and with Governor DeWine also pulling out the changes to the County Budget Commission, County Auditor Galloway, he was Lake County Auditor, he was instrumental in trying to get changes to that because he recognized the same thing, that the County Budget Commission is not the watchdog for the taxpayers that they should be.
All right. Let's look at some of the text because DeWine got out his red pen, and I want to go over some of this with you. He cut out everything that was to reform property taxes. Everything that was in that bill. That state budget bill started off at 5,500 pages, and he got through with it. It was under 4,000 pages, or like 3,800 pages or something. So he axed a lot of stuff, 67 line item vetoes, and that's kind of like a record, okay? So some of the stuff that was vetoed, let's see what we got here. Maybe you can explain this for a second. The County Budget Commission authority over school levies. Do you know what that pertains to, by any chance, Brian? The county?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what is that?
Yeah, yes, I do.
That got axed.
I'll try to give it a 30-second Reader's Digest version. The County Budget Commission is made up of the county auditor, treasurer, and the prosecutor. The role of the County Budget Commission is to be the tax watchdog for the taxpayers to ensure that the taxing authorities, be they the schools or any of the other government taxing authorities, are being good stewards of the taxpayers' money and not just accumulating cash as they are currently doing. The County Auditors Association, over, I think it was 2 years ago, when Auditor Galloway recognized that, and they were trying to do something, trying to get more rules and regulations so that the County Budget Commission can tell these taxing authorities, you cannot accumulate this much cash. You don't need it. And even Auditor Galloway said it's going to be very difficult to for the County Budget Commission to tell the schools you're spending way too much on administration costs or something like that. So the taxpayers are really at the mercy of these taxing authorities because they're voting emotionally. For the schools, you got to do it for the kids, or you got to vote for the school levies because it'll keep your property values high.
Which is a lie, because you're paying out all that money in property taxes. You have no money left to fix your house up.
Right.
Here's another one, the 40% carryover cap on school district cash balances. That was chopped. And the reason given by DeWine was, he said this would penalize fiscally responsible districts and limit their ability to plan for emergencies, building projects, or enrollment changes. He said this would create massive disruption in school budgeting. Obviously, you'll see a pattern here. Everything is because it would hurt the public school. Every single one of these property tax reform bills, it has nothing to do with you or me helping us. It's because it's going to hurt
Joe,
the public school. That's all DeWine kept saying.
What DeWine also said, this is very important. We've got DeWine on the record saying that the two main sources of school funding are the income tax and the property taxes. And now they've reduced the income tax, and they ultimately want to eliminate the income tax. Therefore, if they eliminate one of the two, the other one's going to have to be a greater dependence on the property taxes, which is going to further compound the problem for not only the seniors, but everyone in the state.
No, that's a good point. You've only got two sources to pick from, right? You've got the
two main sources, yes.
Two main sources, the state income tax, which they now have as a flat tax of 2.75%. And if they can ever get it to zero, that would eliminate that bucket of money for the schools. And then the only other recourse is what? Property taxes?
That's what he's saying. Well, they've got smaller buckets like the gambling. They've got that. But I just looked at, and I posted something on this. The Ohio state budget now is $100 billion. I think it was 5-6 years ago, it was $70 billion. So as I said, there's no problem in generating your revenue for the state. It's their spending, where they're spending it. And the DeRolf case, in 1997, they said it was unconstitutional using property taxes, but they did nothing about it. And what they did is they pushed even though it's in the Ohio Constitution that the state is responsible for the public school funding, they push it at the local level and with the property taxes.
Okay.
And it's out of control.
Let me read this, and then we'll continue. We will continue on. Let me see what this says. It says, who is running on a platform of investing in quality family-supporting jobs that provide health insurance in Ohio? So good-paying jobs that have health insurance. Who is running on that platform? I think Vivek Ramaswamy. He seems to be doing that. That is what most tax-paying citizens do not mind sharing tax dollars to produce. What we've been investing in these past years is not helping our welfare state. This is a major problem in Ohio. Yeah, I think Ramaswamy, that's what he's saying, and that's what he's going to do, bring a lot of companies, corporations, and that to Ohio, good-paying jobs that have health and benefits, the whole works, okay? But that is what we need in Ohio. When you start feeding entitlements to people, like Medicaid, out the wazoo to everybody, that's what diminishes, that's how we become a welfare state. Because everybody's dependent on the government. You got to flip the tables. We got to bring industry in. Now, here's one of the reasons I don't have a problem with a 2.75%. It maybe hurts with the property, with the schools, because some of that money would be going to schools. But what I see is that's a great way to bring in more corporations into Ohio, so that we get the high-paying jobs that we desperately need.
Well, you've got another one to read, but I've got some comments.
Yeah, go ahead. Unless you want to read that one.
I don't want to cut this short. Somebody's posted here. People automatically think the sales tax will go up if property taxes are eliminated. They need to know there needs to be an expense reduction too. Absolutely. That's spot on. That is key. Right. It all ties together. So here's a couple of comments. One is the levy. It's the liquor cabinet. The levy is the liquor cabinet. I want you to start thinking of the levy as the liquor cabinet. If you have an alcoholic anywhere near you, the liquor cabinet needs to be locked. If you've ever experienced life living near somebody who is addicted to alcohol or any other drug, meth or crack or whatever, you know that they will do whatever it takes to get their next fix. We got there about 50 or 70 years ago in public schools. They're no longer public schools. They flipped. Now they're government-run schools that don't listen to the public. And they got to the point decades ago of overspending. Case in point, there are school districts in Ohio that are spending over $40,000 per year per pupil for last place approximately. In the global setting, when you look at all other industrialized developed nations, and let's include some places that are a little more than a mud hut with a chalkboard and kids sitting cross-legged on the floor, that are doing better academically than we are, for $17,000 to $45,000 per year. It's just egregious, ridiculous waste of money. So stop dumping money down that hole and let's start paying attention. Doge the school districts, I think when we saw USAID and things like it, it woke up the public. Now there's a hunger, there's an appetite. Let's keep pushing, because whatever I don't even know what it is, $1 trillion an hour or whatever ridiculous number, just it's fiction. Whatever the state of Ohio claims that they're spending on education, I would suggest that maybe, just ballparking off the top of my head, maybe 4% of that money goes toward helping a student somewhere. The rest of it is just egregious fluff and fraud. We need to fix that. Bring America and the state of Ohio back to a focus on academics. Joe, to your point, I want to make a refining comment. When you talked about Vivek Ramaswamy, I think it was in the context of him trying to bring the big high-paying jobs and try and lure the megacorp into Ohio and all that stuff. I suppose maybe if huge concessions are made, maybe they lure in some big mega corporation, and we end up bent over the barrel so many times with those. It's awful. Typically, we get overpromised and underdelivered with those things, and we have to offer up tax abatement for decades. And I say maybe, if the situation is right, but put 95% of our effort and energy into making Ohio much more job friendly, much more business friendly, because where the real economic development is in small business. You create a better incentive environment for people to start, create, grow, and develop their own small business enterprise in Ohio, then we're really talking. You're not talking about the pretend possible theoretical 5,000 jobs that might open in 16 years if Intel builds a $2 billion plant and blah, 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 all that stuff. There's this constant parade of discussion about those mega giant corp that maybe they come into Ohio, and we always seem to end up in a worse position once they get here.
Yeah, but
or it seems
you got to
me.
think of one thing here. DeWine's the one who's been in charge for the last, how many years has he been in there now? He's going on 7 years or something. But we've had some really lousy governors, okay? And that's why. And we've been running this state similar to a Democratic state with lots and lots of taxes, lots of bureaucratic red tape and everything like that. That's what's been causing businesses not to come here. Plus, we're not a right-to-work state, all right? That's another thing. We have to become a right-to-work state because these big companies, they're like, I don't know. I don't want to become part of a union or something like that. So the right-to-work states, like 14 of the top 15 growing states are all right-to-work. And the ones that are at the end of the 50, like Ohio, we're still a big union. And people are like, well, the unions pay better. The unions pay better. They pay better to the individual, but they hurt the state as a whole. Okay, and that's what we have to look into.
Another good point.
All right, here we go. And I'll need some help on this because I still haven't figured it out. But expansion of the 20 mil floor calculation. What was vetoed? A proposal to include additional levies in the 20 mil floor calculation. DeWine shut that down. Brian, can you give us an explanation as to what that is?
Yeah, that's the 20 mil floor is for school districts only, and it's made up of the inside millage, which is unvoted, and the outside millage, which is voted on by the taxpayers. For example, if a school district has 5 mills as inside millage, and they started out the outside millage with, let's say, 30 mills years ago. As the property values increase, the millage rate is reduced by House Bill 920, which then becomes an effective tax rate. So the 30 mills keeps being reduced, you're bringing in the same amount of money, but it's because you have higher values of homes, but a lower effective tax rate. When that 30 mills, in my example, if that goes down to 15 mills, the 15 mills of outside plus the 5 mills of inside, that is the 20 mil floor. What they're talking about now is emergency school levies. There's one school district in Lake County it's famous for it. I think they've got 6 of them. That is not in the 20 mil floor calculation. And what they're talking about is including those emergency levies in the calculation. So it'll be much more difficult for the school district to reach the 20 mil floor. And with the 20 mil floor, what happens is the outside millage is treated like inside millage. So if there's for example, if there's a 10% increase in home values, there will be a 10% increase in property taxes for that school district without a vote of the taxpayers.
Yeah. Well,
if that makes sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sorry to say. It doesn't make sense. I'm still confused. I've been doing this for an hour or for a year. I don't think the average person has a clue what you just said. I'm not saying you didn't explain
that
it
just
clearly,
tells you about.
But these terms, inside, outside, 5%, 20%.
Well, that's the complexity of the whole system.
The bill, House Bill 920, all this stuff. It should be so simple that you could do it in your sleep. This is how much your house costs, and this is the percent that you have to pay. Let's just keep this thing simple. But better yet, let's just get rid of property taxes altogether. Okay? That's what we've got to do.
Again, what the whole premise of basing your taxes on the home value, you're paying tax on the unrealized gains. We've said that many different times, and that's one of the big problems. And what they have done recently, they may have even reduced the value of the home, but they've increased the value of the land. So what we have is we have a system that is controlled by third-party appraisers who are controlling the destiny of the homeowners, but they're not accountable to the homeowners. Try to ask the third party, how did you come up with the valuation of my home? They don't have to tell you. That's proprietary.
Yeah, because they need so much money, so they have to raise everybody's house a certain percentage so they can bring in this cost of living increase money.
Well, that's the reverse engineering. They'll claim they don't do it. We don't believe them at all.
No, they do it.
They reverse engineer. They know how much money they need for school districts, and they know the value, what the value of the property has to go up to attain those that revenue.
All right, let's get a few of these questions out of the way real quick. We'll try to answer these real fast. Okay, so Charles Parker, what exactly is Issue 2 all about? And is it a good thing for the citizens of the state of Ohio or not? Issue 2. What is Issue 2? You guys know?
I don't know.
Is that a local issue maybe? I don't think it's a statewide issue. I'm not familiar with it. But if you can give us a little more information, we will try to answer it. Here we go. Kevin Reynolds, I hear complaints about public school funding, but not one word about parochial school funding. You want your kids in private school? Pay for it out of your own pocket. The majority of citizens cannot afford private schools. Yet, neocons want public education funding cut when the state constitution says the state must fund public education. Okay, we hear this all the time, all the time. Now, there's a couple problems with that reasoning. One is nobody pays attention to how much money is coming into these public schools. An enormous amount. When you do a levy, and this was on the, what is that report called? The CUP report. Let's say, I think it was 85% of the levy goes to increased pay raises, pensions, administrators. None of it goes to the kids, okay? There's no accountability. No one is scrutinizing these public schools. There's so much money flowing into them. And my argument, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, my argument is that the job of the job of Ohio is to educate the kids. And if that means homeschooling, then they ought to help the mom and dad's homeschool. That means going to a parochial school, give them a voucher so they can go to parochial school, or they can go to their Jewish school or wherever, because that's important to parents. We don't want our kids going to some institution that's going to change them into the opposite sex, okay? So we should have that ability to do that. And the kids are learning, and in most cases with the private schools, they are far ahead of what's happening in the public school. All right, Brian.
Joe, I've said I've said that I always think that the public schools should compete for the children. Just because my child is in, Riverside School District, why do I have to send them to Riverside School District if they don't have the same value system that I have? So that's why I'm a big believer, I guess, in the voucher system. So it's the ultimate responsibility of the family, though, to educate the children. And that may be heresy, in the state of Ohio, but we've got to do something different. I mean, we're paying all this money, and I ask people if they know the proficiency scores of their school district, and they don't. So even go ahead, John.
I didn't mean to step on your toes there, Brian. You
No,
know me
no problem.
with education. It hits me sideways. For anybody that doesn't know this, I'm co-creator of the Ohio Academic Accountability Project. Joe, I don't know if that's something off the cuff you can find. It's at Protect Ohio Children Academic Accountability Project, or AAP for short. It's a drop-down menu that actually instructs people on how to go to the Ohio Department of Education and pull reports on what's happening in their local district. All districts in Ohio report through the Ohio Department of Education. It got touchy enough that a few years ago, when we first launched a tutorial video exposing this stuff, that part of the website was taken down. We went to a bunch of our senators and state reps and complained, and it got put back up again. It's hard to find. It's not intuitive. It's not easy to control. I think it's by design, but I have a little tutorial video that show you how to go to whatever your local district is and pull the academic reporting. And you can pull it in all kinds of different ways, based on demographics, based on the area of study, you name it. And there are also financial reports. They're not actually complete because there are two ways that school districts collect money for students. The main one, that is a per pupil expense, is reported. So you can see a pretty good figure, pretty close. Imagine it's probably about 90% of the number. But if you look up your district, pull the report, and it shows that only 10% of your students know how to read or can add, and it's costing you $20,000 per year per pupil, then unfortunately for the person who just posted that comment, it blows that argument right out of the water, because we look at parochial schools, and I know the numbers from lots of them, and we think, boy, it's pretty costly for a mom and dad, a family, to send their child to school for $15,000 per year. It's rare to get into the $30,000 range. It's common in Ohio's government-run schools to be in that range. But the difference is night and day, because now you can look at academics and show that the children who are taken out of government-run schools do tremendously better, pretty much across the board. Here's one other thing, because there's a group of us worked on this at a statewide level. Omar Tarazi and I are the co-creators of the Academic Accountability Project for the state of Ohio. But here's something that, to me, is telling, and more people should be aware of and talking about. It has to do with academic proficiency of kids who start off in government-run schools and then go into home education. Overwhelmingly, all across the board, all kids do better effectively as a demographic. As soon as they leave the government-run school and go somewhere else, they do better. When they go to home education, it's one of the biggest leaps there is in knowledge, areas of study, proficiency, you name it, across the board. However, there's one telling caveat, or one telling element, I should say, to this whole thing. Asian kids, who are typically top tier, do better. White kids do better relative to the government-run schools. Hispanic, Middle Eastern, there's a huge jump in academic proficiency. The biggest jump by leaps and bounds are black kids. Black boys and girls who leave government-run schools do phenomenally better when they get into a home education environment, which is awesome. When you look back at one of the silver lining of COVID, the jump in home education in the black community in America outpaced every other community, Asian, Middle Eastern, Hispanic, and white. It jumped to about a little over 16% home education. That is a trend that we have to follow. If we want to be a competitive, successful nation, we need educated children, educated next generations to take us there. It doesn't mean continue to pump $40,000 into barely literate and can't make change for $1 and might be sufficient to work at a drive-through. It means creating the next generation who are going to actually be intelligent enough to maintain and sustain our society. Yeah. That means something other than government-run schools.
Okay, my kids, I live in Cleveland Heights. My kids, I would not put them into the Cleveland Heights public school system because it's basically equivalent to Cleveland. It's just maybe a step above the Cleveland public schools. I was not going to do it. So we had to get the kids through private schools the whole way, parochial schools actually. They've done very well. And very, very well, which they would not have been able to do in the public school. So I think it's owed to the parents. If the parents want this because it's best for their kids and it's best for their careers and their lives, then the state needs to provide that and quit playing this game of, well, you got to go to a public school. You shouldn't have to go and be forced to go to public school. We're not going to get any funding. Hey, listen, I pay... Cleveland Heights is one of the highest tax rates, okay? So I pay a lot of taxes for a crummy house. I pay a ton of taxes, and then you got to go and pay, on the side for the private school as well. That ain't fair. That ain't fair either. All right, throw a couple more questions on before we wrap it up tonight. Let's see what else is out there. Can you? Let's see what this says. So issue 2, I think what he was talking about with issue 2 was what was on the May ballot. And that was the bonds. Remember that? They issued bonds. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I think it was a horrible, 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 horrible thing. I don't know why they issued bonds. To create a slush fund for the legislature. That's what it was. It's a slush fund. That's all it is, okay? So they can dip into it and have some fun. What does this say? Nope! ! School choice is now the law of the land. Isn't it in the big, beautiful bill? It might be. I heard that it was. I'm not sure exactly how that plays out, but I heard that there was money put in there for school choice. Let's see else here. Money is also flowing out of them to pay for economic development. Okay. Anything else? Big Beautiful Bill creates a federal tax credit to support private school choice. There you go. Vouchers are tax scams. Okay, hang on a second. Now, I know, Kevin, you just put the other one up, and you put this one up. Now, let's find out here. Vouchers are tax scams for wealthy people. I agree public school funding is a mess, but come down to southeastern Ohio, where property values are not like Olentangy parochial schools, and they do not have to accept all kids. Well, of course, yeah, I know they don't have to accept all kids. That's another argument I hear all the time. Well, it's got to be a public school because you got to take everybody. Well, if you have enough private schools, you'll find the private school that's best for your kid, okay? That's the way the game could be played. Not cramming them all into the public school. It's not a good fit. But I guess I didn't quite catch what his question was. If you want to just throw it up there real fast, because I want to see what he was getting to. Come down to South.
I don't believe that the vouchers favor rich, poor, or middle. The voucher program is designed for anybody that's looking for a better alternative for children than the failed government-run school program. The government-run schools, almost without exception, have been a disastrous money pit of failure. It is economic and educational malfeasance at a grand level over and over again. So there are people who, and I know that sounds hyperbolic, it sounds sensational, and I can tell you that some years ago I was there myself. I had a one-on-one conversation with Alex Newman, who made very much the same comments to me, and I remember being floored by that. I was like, what? Who would possibly challenge government schools? I mean, or actually at the time I was thinking of them as public schools. Who would say such a thing? And then all it took was 5 minutes of me looking at numbers and figures and seeing what is actually happening. And it's awful. We're now finally coming to the realization that our healthcare system is not good, that we effectively were among the least healthy, most expensed people on the planet. We have pills for everything, yet we're horribly unhealthy. That's a great analogy for what's happening to children in government-run schools. We're spending vast fortunes in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars as if money grows on trees. We're spending so much money, we're driving people into homelessness directly, literally, by passing all these levies. And yet, the result is horrendously awful. I mean, all you have to do is just go and walk around in many places, and people talk about it. They're just not yet really completely connecting the dots. When you leave that drive-through and you go and post on social media or call your friends or your spouse and say, I can't believe it. I was there for 10 extra minutes because the kid behind the cash register couldn't figure out how to make change for a $20 bill. Or just the outrageous, when you talk to somebody and they don't know what countries are touching the United States. They have no idea what's north of the United States. When you talk to people who don't know the state capital of Ohio and they're 24 years old or something, there's a reason for that. It is our failed government-run education system. And for people who want to argue that we need to keep it going, or we need to maybe with the next levy, maybe if we spend $80,000 per pupil per year, maybe they might get smarter. All evidence points to the contrary.
Yeah.
It's been a disastrous failure, and we need to find alternatives. And the voucher program, it helps rich, poor, and everything in between.
It ain't going to help you because, like in Cleveland, in East Cleveland, it's like $40,000 a kid, but they're not. They have such a horrible graduation rate, and the ones who do graduate, they're not going on to college or anything. That's for sure.
Okay,
there's no
else?
alternative in most southeastern Ohio. It's public or home school when you get down there. That's Appalachian territory. But maybe you will start building, or small private schools could sprout up if there was, with the vouchers and all that. If it is financially, listen, there's nothing about a free public school. Those public schools are not free. They're costing you a fortune with all the property tax money that they're collecting. Okay, so it ain't free. So
that shift, Joe, is happening. Micro schools, pods, community is building around alternatives, and people are discovering all kinds of things. To that person, I forget who posted that, I suggest looking up. There are shared resources. There are communities that are organizing around finding better ways to educate children, and they're calling them micro schools and pods, and it just all kinds of fabulous stuff it's actually being worked on and developed as we speak by communities all over the United States who woke up mostly because of COVID and saw how bad things truly are.
Okay.
Go
ahead. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I always wondered, Jonathan, I agree with you there.
One second, Brian, 1 second.
Go ahead.
It's never enough for schools. Double the funding, and the schools would just double cost salaries. Exactly. You give them twice the amount of money, and it gets wasted on salaries and building a bigger school building and everything else. Yeah, they have to be doged. Okay, Brian, I'm going to let you wrap it up. Go ahead and explain and, whatever you want to say.
I was thinking about what Jonathan was saying about the new format that it seems to be building, and that is alternative. And I always wondered about, let's say we had the best math teacher is in Iowa. Well, couldn't we tap into that best math teacher in Iowa, via the internet? Because I'd be willing to pay for the best math teacher or the best English teacher or history teacher. They don't necessarily have to be, in the classroom itself. Could be wrong in there, but it just seems like we need to do something different than what we're doing. It's not working.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Chat GPT. Okay.
No.
That is he'll do all your work for you, okay? But I'll tell you what, when my kids were doing math problems and stuff and I had to help them, I would go on YouTube. I would type in, the math problem. There's somebody somewhere, those billions of videos they've got, who has that exact problem, and they explain it to you. And I found that to be incredibly helpful, as opposed to having to sit in a classroom. So you could Zoom, you could do YouTube videos, you can ask Chat GPT. There's lots of things you can do these days. But anyhow, all right. Hey, last thing, real quick, Brian. People have got to go to what website to abolish property taxes? What is that website?
Yeah, it's we're trying to get multiple websites because we're concerned about the websites being attacked. The reformpropertytax.com, that's sort of under repair. The other one is axohtax.com, axohiotax.com. And I'm going to be working on another website too, just to make sure that if we're under attack, and we think we will be, we're going to have more than just one website that people can access the information that they need, where to sign the petitions, and that sort of thing. So perhaps next week I'll be able to tell you about any other new websites that we have.
All right, sounds good. Well, you guys have a good
Joe?
night. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Good. One final thing. Two things. First off, we want to wish everybody down in Texas a very fast recovery. I know with the water and all that rain is still coming, so a lot of prayers. I know the death toll is going up, so prayers to that. And then also, I'm gonna for next week, everybody that's watching, I know there's X, YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Make sure I'm noticing in the chat, Facebook, you won tonight a friendly challenge to Rumble, X, and YouTube. Please chat with us. It's a fun way to interact with the show, but please, I challenge YouTube, Rumble, and X to get into the chat because Facebook dominated tonight. We appreciate everybody's chatting. It makes the show a lot more interactive.
Yeah, I liked all the chatting and everything like that. And if we can get that every time, or get it, that can be an entire show right there. We'll just take questions and answer them, and as long as they're on the subject and stuff like that. Because
yeah, Joe, I do appreciate the one chat about the. I will look for Donald Trump talking about the property taxes. I will look into that. I'd appreciate someone giving us a heads up.
I looked it up. It actually, I think it's Caroline Levitt and a few other people close to him have sort of teased it out. But I'm finding nothing online that attributes it directly to Trump, at least not yet.
All righty. Hey, guys, we're going to call it a night tonight. I want to thank you guys. Brian, Jonathan, thank you again. Appreciate all your input, and thanks to everybody who's watching. You guys have a good night, okay?
Good night, everyone.